I'm Gus Downing, publisher and editor of the D&D Daily, and this is the LP News Network. And today we have with us Bob Serenson, the Director of Loss Prevention for Bed Bath & Beyond, a retailer with over 1,400 stores in North America, with 4 different brands, doing well over $11 billion in sales annually. Bob is a 20-plus year LP industry veteran who successfully led loss prevention teams and programs at a number of retailers. His approach and philosophy has always been based on basic core beliefs that have been very successful. And we wanted to share one with you today that he brought up recently in a conversation with me, and it's about the relationship between your career, your progress, and your employer, the retailer. And the fact that the relationship between the two is a mutual investment on both of your parts. With that, Bob, I'd like to thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Gus. I really appreciate the time.
Can you talk to us about that mutual investment theory?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this all started many years ago when, you're interviewing people for positions, and you go through that interview process and you ask that proverbial question, where do you see yourself 5 years from now, 7 years from now? And the person's pretty quick to come back with an answer saying, well, I'm going to be in your role. I'd like to see myself further in the organization, doing something, at a higher level. And then the next question is, well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to get there? And then you find this glazed look over their face, and they're kind of looking around the room, and there's not really a plan of action there, and you know that. So, that really started the impetus of what we wanted to do back in my days at RS of, how do we make an investment in people? And then the second part of that is, how do people make an investment in themselves? So, from my perspective, I think, both parties have that obligation. And it really comes down to the companies having a clear, defined path of where you can go within the organization. Once you come in, you might come in as a loss prevention person, but maybe something else intrigues you, such as human resources, maybe it's operations, maybe it's warehousing. So as I get into my role, how do I get into these other aspects of the job or of the company? And then I think it goes the other way too. There's some great people in other parts of the company that might want to come over into the loss prevention side of the business. And we don't ever leverage that enough back then. And those were some of the learnings I had from a company perspective. The other side of that is, the people, the employee, and how that employee takes ownership of what they need to do. And that might be, asking the right questions. Like, what is it that I need to do to get ahead? What is it that I need to do to get into that next level? What is it that, who can help me get there? It might not be the person you're working for. It might be someone else in another part of the company that could help you move forward within an organization. So how do you build that relationship, that trust, to be able to move forward in an organization?
So it's about the person asking the right questions, putting a program together, and the organization being open to it and communicating back to the executives.
Absolutely. I think from any executive level wants the best of the best, right? And to get the best, you might have a lot of crown jewels and you just don't know it because they might be very good at other aspects of the business that they just haven't had a chance to do it. And I think that's one of the things that I really enjoyed in some of my other retailers is that we moved people around. I took operators and put them in LP into operations, LP into human resources, and I think that really made, as a company, everybody was more aware of everybody's roles and responsibilities. And we asked better questions, and we had a better understanding of how to move the business collectively. But again, people who don't drive that, the people who don't understand, hey, listen, this is the skill sets I need to work on. This is what I'm lacking. I might be lacking some skills. How can I get better at it? Does the company offer LMS sessions, learning management systems that you can go in and truly try to learn some basic aspects of what you would need to learn? It might be report writing. It might be how to write a review for somebody. It might be your communication skills. It might be presentation skill sets. So all of that stuff should be available. We should make that available to people. It's funny. I'll go back to a story of one time when one of my associates said to me, Bob, I really want to work on my presentation skills. What can you do for me? And I said, well, the question is, what can you do for yourself? And he looked at me and he said, well, aren't you supposed to be here to help me? I said, that's what I'm doing right now, and I am helping you. I said, what kind of research have you done on your own to figure out what you could do to help your presentation
Getting them
skills?
to take responsibility for it.
Getting them to take responsibility. And you know what? That person ended up joining Toastmasters International. You know, and they ended up becoming a certified Toastmaster. You know, and it took them some time to do that, you know, over months and over a year time frame. But ultimately, you know, he ended up being one of the best presenters in our company, and which helped him also, by the way, make connections outside of our circle, and got him a job not only within our company, but later on, when he left our company, in other companies.
But that executive had the courage to come to you and talk to you about it and ask that question.
Absolutely, and I think that's what you need. You need to be courageous. You need to, you know, take responsibility of your own career. You need to ask, again, getting back to the right questions and being able to, you know, don't. I always tell people, you know, you wouldn't go into an executive, you know, board meeting and not be prepared. So when you're talking about your career and you're talking about moving forward in your personal life, I think you need to be prepared to have those conversations. And if you don't do your homework before you go in there, well, again, you're not taking that personal responsibility. And again, from the company standpoint, be open, listen to what they're asking for. You know, if you don't have something in place, you know, you should consider putting something in place, because there's probably more than one person asking that question.
If the company doesn't have something in place, doesn't have a line of communications open for the executives to flow through and look for career opportunities, promotions, cross-pollination, whatever, what do you suggest to the executives?
Well, I would tell you time and time again, you got to keep on, you know, pounding the pulpit. I think you got to keep going back to them. I think, you know, most HR departments are understand, hey, listen, we got to do things for our associates and moving forward. You know, talent development understands that. I would say continue to do that, continue to drive that, and also do something on your own and prove it to the organization that it works. Prove it that, hey, listen, I went out and I joined Toastmasters. I think we should have a Toastmasters International Club right on premise, because this is what it's done for me. This is what I have learned from that process. And now if we did that for many of our associates, how much better can we be in this venue?
But it also takes a leader that's open enough.
Absolutely.
To be able to kind of take that input and help those executives as well, correct?
Absolutely. I think you need to understand your responsibility as a leader. You need to understand that you know, taking that step forward and telling people, hey, listen, this is what needs to be done, and here's the reasons why, and we all benefit from that. You know, you talk about like things that go on in normal everyday life in retail. You know, markdowns. You know, we talk about markdowns. Talk about margin, right? Retail math 101. You know, a lot of people getting into retail don't truly understand retail math. You know, you could talk to several, you know, leaders in the LP industry. Shrink's looked at various ways. Right? It's calculated various ways. How many people really understand how shrink's calculated within their own department?
Yeah, good point.
So I think, you know, you really need to take that responsibility, number one, and then number two, from you know, a senior executive level, I think you need to be able to be courageous, just like the associate needs to be courageous, and do the right thing for your associates. And sometimes it's going to cost you money. And when I say cost money, I mean that's an investment. It's not a cost of doing business. It's an investment in doing business, and that's going to make your company that much better.
And it's also taking a risk. I mean, moving up is also taking a risk for anybody, any organization.
Absolutely.
So they've got to be willing to take the risk, you know, have the courage to be able to do it and go out and pursue it on their own, so to speak.
I would agree with that. You know, I think I've given a lot of advice to people who worked for me in my past and saw that they couldn't move forward for various reasons and wanted to go do other things, right? And, you know, I think, you know, giving them the advice and saying, hey, listen, this is your choice, your personal responsibility. This is about you and your family. And they make that choice. I'm going to make that choice to leave and go somewhere else. I can offer them the same advice as a professional and as a person, but they're taking that risk to move forward because they're in the comfort level of what's here, right? And when they go somewhere else, it's not so comfortable. And, you know, it's a little more edgy and a little more riskier. And you know, I've been down the road before of going to a company that folds 2 years later, and you know, that was risky, and I was in a very comfortable place, right? And then you go there and that happens. So you take those risks, but again, personally, I wouldn't trade those risks and those, you know, ups and downs, because that's how I learned, and that's what makes me a better leader, and it makes me think differently than most.
One last question.
Sure.
Okay. What do you say to the executive that's somewhat quiet, somewhat reserved, kind of sits in the back of the room in the meetings and such, but yet they feel stagnant. They want to get ahead, and they really want to succeed. What do you say to that executive about taking charge of their career?
You know, some folks just don't have that. They're not a type A personality, right? So, you know, again, you have to understand. I'm a sports guy, so when I look at you know, a hockey team, because that's what I'm most familiar with. When you talk about a hockey team, you know, I had 2 teams where I had leaders that wore the C. They were captains, and one guy was type A personality, go go go. The other guy was like the silent, you know, very conservative type. And when that guy spoke, or when the silent guy, the quiet guy, when he spoke, you know, you listened to him and you heard what he had to say. And I think as senior executives, you need to listen to that person. You need to watch their actions. You need to understand what they're doing. So you can then take that and learn and go and ask them, hey, listen, what can I do for you? How can I help you move ahead? Because there are guys who are going to be taking a back seat, and they kind of like taking the road less traveled, so to speak, and be low under the radar. And I think that's our role as senior executives, to be able to, you know, pull them out and shine a little bit of a light on them and get them comfortable in that. That's what my job would be.
And I think the adage of don't judge a book by its cover kind of falls there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Yep.
Well, thanks for taking the time to be with us, Bob. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Gus. Appreciate it.
Well, that's it for this episode of the LP News Network. I'd like to thank you for watching. And like I always like to say, let's keep them safe out there.